Welcome to this Jeremy Bamber and White House Farm podcast. My name is Yvonne Hartley from the Jeremy Bamber Innocence Campaign, and tonight I am joined by my colleague Philip Walker. Hello, Philip.
Good evening.
And we're also joined by our patron and Jeremy supporter, Michael O'Brien. Hi, Mike.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you for joining us. Tonight, Mike's going to speak about some of the miscarriage of justice cases which he has experience about. We thought it would be a good thing to bring to the attention of people, not only high-profile cases, but also maybe little-known cases that are still existing today where people are fighting for their freedom and fighting for justice. So, Mike, you've worked on a lot of miscarriage of justice cases over the years, haven't you?
I've worked on many, and I've identified a number of miscarriages of justices, in the early years. To give you an example, Michelle Diskin's brother, Barry George, you know what I mean? I was one of the first in Wales to start questioning what was going on in that case, and pointed out that he was very much like my co-accused Aaron Hall, who had who wasn't very bright. He had issues. And I told people this, and I was laughed at. They all thought I was a crank. But then when Barry George got his name cleared, those same people came to me for an interview. So it's quite ironic that these people who scoffed at me, if you like, I was proved right. So and that's happened on a number of occasions, So yes, it's very intriguing sometimes. The way the media are very philosophical about things, and the public as well, But we all know that Barry George was definitely innocent, and I knew from an early stage. Colin Stagg was another one. I didn't work on Colin Stagg's case, but I did follow it, and you could clearly see what was going on in that case, and I fully supported, that case to be looked at again, because we feel that there's no accountability for what was done in that, to Colin Stagg. You know what I mean? They were trying to set him up, but it was quite obvious. There's been a documentary, I think, recently about Colin Stagg's case on Channel 5. And
yes, it has deceit.
Hasn't it? Yes.
It just shows as well how much the media can impact on cases, because the media take sides and the media paint people to be what they're not. They need the person to fit into their scenario of what this person would be to commit that crime, and then it gets exaggerated as the years progress, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There's another case I'm working on at the moment. I have never seen anything like it in my life, and I'm going to explain the case to everybody, because it's a joint enterprise case, but it's not. It shouldn't have been a joint enterprise case. Now, the case of Joe Fetter, again, is in
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you please explain what joint enterprise is to the people that don't know?
Well, joint enterprise means that if you're in the vicinity, or if you're with somebody and an incident occurs, that you could be liable for the actual act that one person does. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by joint enterprise. If there's three of you go out there with the intention to cause harm, then you will, whether you've touched the person or not, the other two people have touched the person or not, you will still get found guilty of murder or robbery or burglary or whatever joint enterprise they think you were involved in. Now, with Joe Fetter's case, it's a recent case. It's a 2016 case. And what it was, there was a crash. And this Joe Fetter was behind the person who smashed into this lady coming out of a garage. All caught on CCTV footage. But according to the police, Joe was racing this person, and that's why they crashed into the car. Now, there's a number of factors here. We found some new evidence since. He was found guilty and got 5 years for, causing the smash. And yet his car did not touch the victims. It's really extraordinary. And it's even more extraordinary when you look at the fact was, he was nowhere near where the car got smashed. He was further back. And yes, he was, he might have been slightly speeding. We all do it, but that doesn't mean he's responsible for whatever happens in front of him. But this is what they've done. The defence didn't call the person who actually committed the crime and admitted it, and yet he said that the guy called Alton, who was a police officer's son, turned around and said, I don't know this Joe Fetter. Who is he? So why didn't the defence call him to say, well, I don't know the guy. I wasn't racing with him. And he actually said he wasn't racing with him. So that was the one thing. Then we found a taxi driver who said he's seen the car going at certain miles an hour and witnessed the actual crash and said that Joe Fetter was not speeding on that stretch of road in Barry. I mean, there's a film on YouTube called An Anatomy of Injustice of Joe Fetter, and you can see the footage. And I mean, very important case, because it means if I was somebody, because maybe you were going too fast, I could get done because I saw what you did, even though you didn't know me.
It's just shocking,
I mean,
isn't it?
I put Joe's case in. It's the last one in the book, and I mean, it's just unbelievable. You know, I know there was a victim's family, and I gotta say, you know, it was tragic what happened. But to take an innocent man down when they already had the perpetrator for that crime is evil and wicked.
And people can watch that footage for themselves on YouTube, Mike.
They can watch it on YouTube, yeah. Type in Joe Fetter and it will come up straight away. An Anatomy of Injustice, Joe Fetter. I did an interview for that programme as well, and I give my professional views on what I thought. And the man's life is ruined. He's never been in trouble with the police, not at all. I mean, he's a well-to-do young man. His life's been ruined by this miscarriage of justice. His father is absolutely devastated. I was in school with his father, and I hadn't seen him for 30-odd years. And when I looked at the case, I looked at it because I knew the father. But, you know, if I thought for 1 minute that Joe actually took part in this race or took part in this, you know, I would say so. But that's not the case at all. And I mean, it's got to be one of the newest Miscarriage Morris's case and Roy Moore's in 2006. So, you know, that's where we are with Joe's case. Now, we went for an appeal and the judge wouldn't allow new evidence in. Saying
he wouldn't allow the new evidence.
Wouldn't allow the new evidence in. No, he applied out of time, you know, under the Criminal Appeals Act 1968 to go for an appeal out of time because the taxi driver come forward after he seen that documentary that we all made on Joe's case. Yes. And he said, I know Joe wasn't racing because I saw what happened. So, you know, he was actually a driving instructor who was giving somebody lessons in the car and he's seen it whiz past. And he's seen exactly what occurred. And yet they wouldn't allow it in because they said, well, it should have been available at the time of the trial. How is that possible?
If the witness hasn't come forward at that time, then it's not possible, is it? It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely. This, you know, Joe's case, you know, people say, well, it's only 5 years. I did all of, you know, some horrible comments, you know, that it's only a small sentence. He'll get over it. No, he won't get over it. You know, he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He should have had an appropriate adult in there because he was very vulnerable. That was another point we've looked at. We're hoping to get a new solicitor and barrister to look at the case with a view to getting it to the CCRC and getting a new appeal. But, you know, if anybody wants to read the story, it's the last case in the book, The Dossier, and it's extraordinary. And I would say look on YouTube and look at that video. And then if anyone can tell me this man is guilty, I'd be very surprised indeed.
Thank you for that story, Matt. I mean, it's incredible that people would have the attitude that, well, it's only a short sentence and we'll get over it. It's like every 5 minutes spent wrongly convicted is too long. Never mind 5 years, or as in like Jeremy's case, 36 years. It's just appalling.
I think what people got to remember, there's a lot of mundane cases, and I don't mean that in any derogatory term whatsoever. When I say mundane cases, I'm on about cases where people have been wrongly convicted of car theft or burglaries, and you don't hear about them. And since the Clutter story broke in 1989, 85,000 appeals were overturned. And most of them were mundane cases where people would never have heard of them. But nevertheless, they've lost their jobs. They've lost their, they've lost their house because they couldn't keep up the mortgage. And the damage it does, whether it's a mundane case of a burglary or whether it's a high-profile one like Jeremy's, it has the same devastating effect.
Absolutely. Just because a case doesn't hit the newspaper headlines or the television news doesn't mean it isn't real and ongoing for that person, their families, their children, their loved ones, and they have to live this every day. It's just appalling.
But Mike, you seem to have a plethora of these.
I've got a. Pardon?
Sorry, I was just saying you seem to have a plethora of these cases in South Wales. A lot more than other parts of the country seem to get. What do you think are the common threads that link all these cases that you have in your area?
Well, what I've noticed, there's a total disregard for the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. In some of these cases, like when people should have an appropriate adult or access to lawyers, they were being denied those things. Now, in the dossier, I've got 15 cases, including my own, where I believe are all miscarriage of justice cases. Now, when you consider we're only a population of 3 million, 4 million, and you magnify that by, say, 70 million you've got in England, and yet you hear more about South Wales police, in the round, in relation to miscarriages of justice. Something is seriously wrong here. And I'll give you an example. Not one police officer in South Wales has ever been done for causing a miscarriage of justice. Not one solicitor or barrister has been held accountable for shoddy work and causing a miscarriage of justice. And the solicitors as well. When I call for a judicial inquiry into all these cases in my book, I don't mean just the police. I mean, that would be letting too many people off the hook.
Yeah.
You've got to look at the barristers, the solicitors, the judges' role in all this. Just ask yourself this question. How can 3 solicitors, 3 junior counsels, 3 QCs, and a judge miss 115 breaches of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act? If that isn't corruption, then I don't know what is. You know what I mean? That is not.
Isn't it?
You can accept more as true. And that just gives you an idea. And when you look at these cases in my book, the Welsh conspiracy case is even worse than my own case. They actually planted potassium chloride in one of the defendant's bedrooms, Adrian Stone's, and before it was analysed, they knew what it was. They told the defence team, we got potassium chloride on you. So the defence phoned up the forensic laboratory and they said, we haven't even tested it yet. But they already told them what it was. So they got caught out. Planting potassium chloride and trying to make out that Adrian Stone was involved in bombing the holiday homes in 1984. Absolutely outrageous. And there's more to that story in my book where a Plaid Cymru councillor, Nick Hodges, they inserted 18 words into his confession. And in that confession, you can imagine, it was highly incriminating. Exactly the same as what they'd done to me. And it was the same police officer. Inspector Stuart Lewis, who was well known. Stuart Lewis.
Crazy, isn't it?
Stuart Lewis is linked to a number of cases in my book, at least 7 to 8 cases.
The same police officer.
Hallmarks or that common thread of like a confession evidence or verbal admissions made by the defendants. Now, in every case, the jury disbelieved him. And only one conclusion. Now, one case which is not in my book, the same police officer, he is probably one of the worst police officers. That's why we need a judicial inquiry, because I don't see why you should get away with it.
No, they shouldn't get away with it, should they?
I don't care whether he's 76 in bad health or whatever. I'm in bad health, but if I go out and commit a criminal offence tomorrow, they wouldn't go, oh, sorry, we're not going to charge you because you've got bad health, Mr. O'Brien. They'd have me in and my feet wouldn't touch the ground. What's so different about this Inspector Stuart Lewis or any other police officers. We need a High Court judge, a retired High Court judge with wide-ranging powers who can come down to Cardiff and make recommendations like the Runciman report or Justice in the wake of the Birmingham Six. That's the scale we're looking at. It is big. There's 15 cases, and I know there's more I could have put in the book, but it would have been too much.
So, Mike, are there any other little-known cases that you've come across that would be of interest?
Well, I think the case of the Merthyr Three, that's what they were named by the press. It was 3 women who got wrongly convicted of setting fire to a house, and it killed a young baby and a mother, and it hit the headlines in Wales, but I don't think it's really touched England or outside of England. And I mean, it's a very important case because the police set out to get them at all costs, like they did with all the other cases.
What year was this, Mike, please?
Pardon?
What year was this case?
This case was in the 90s. This was.
Yeah.
This is way after my case. They won their first appeal, luckily, but they were sentenced to 20 years, 13 years, and I think 8 years, respectively, for the crime, for perverting the cause of justice, arson with intent, to endanger life, etc., etc. And they were very, very damaged by by what had happened. Now, the one piece of evidence which would have cleared their name if the police would have done their homework was what petrol started the fire, whether it was leaded or unleaded.
Right.
Our understanding was it was leaded which started the fire, and she was seen filling up at the garage, only putting it into a car, not in a container or anything like that. And the prosecution made out that's where she got the petrol from to light the fire, but it was unleaded. So It proves, without a shadow of doubt, it wasn't Annette Hewins and it wasn't the other 2 girls. Now, unfortunately, Annette Hewins died back last year because she never got over the miscarriage of justice. I mean, her marriage split up. She lost a marital home. She had a child born while she was in prison. I mean, she had the baby taken off her, Joshua, when she was in prison. I mean, it was awful, awful. I was very good friends. It's a shocking case. And I, if people read it, Stephen Kisco's was quite bad. You know what I mean? Mm. I'm sure people remember Stephen Kisco's case quite well. This is on par with that. Yeah. Annette was 51 when she died. And I was very close to Annette. You know what I mean? I know all the siblings. I know the family. And when I come out, the first thing I did was campaign for her. You know what I mean? And I went to the hearings. I was there when she got freed.
So the case was eventually overturned? It
was overturned, but the police said they weren't looking for anybody else. The same old syndrome as they do.
Right.
And they've never... They partially acknowledged in a civil action Annette brought in 2000 that she didn't take part in the both. They stopped short of saying sorry. They were, as per usual, they won't come out and say 100% no, we know you never done it. And the devastating impact, if anyone wants to see what an impact the miscarriages of justice had on one person, read up on Annette Hewins. I mean,
so sad.
So, yeah, she had 5 children. She left 5 children behind. They're all grown up now,
Yeah.
But it's left a devastating effect on. It devastated me when I found out. I read in the newspaper that she had died, and it had an effect on me because we were so close. We campaigned together. She campaigned with me when we come out. We asked for a judicial inquiry into South Wales Police, and we worked together. I just feel numb that she's gone. I can't believe that she's gone. But the most important thing is I've taken up the baton now to try and get the case reopened with the dossier of the book. I mean, the book, I wanted to do a number of purposes, not just one. I want justice for the victims' families in all the cases because they deserve justice. We're the secondary victims. We need justice. We need the real people who did these crimes to be caught and put behind bars. It's as simple as that. And the other thing for me is the accountability. Why haven't anybody taken responsibility for all these miscarriages of justice, which has gone on in South Wales. And I don't mean just the police. I mean, the barristers, the solicitors, they couldn't defend a cat, let alone a human being. Some of these solicitors in Wales, absolutely appalling.
It's shocking, isn't it?
We all know, because I've been working on miscarriages of justice now. I'm coming up to my 35th year. I started in 1987, to give you an example, with my own case. And then I worked, even when I was in prison, I used to help other people with their cases. And most of the people I was in prison with have got their name cleared. Peter Fell, George Long, Merthyr Three, the Havel brothers, just to name but a few people I was in prison with who got, the Guildford Four, the Birmingham Six. I could go on. And my judgment wasn't wrong, when I was looking at the people I used to hang around with. And it was the same with Jeremy. To be fair to Jeremy, I knew he didn't do it. You could see it. The way he behaved, he was impeccable, he was articulate, he could put his case across. And, that's why I support Jeremy, because I know that he could not have done that crime. Same as I know Annette Hewins couldn't have committed that crime. The same as Guy Morris couldn't have committed that crime. And as you know, there's been some new developments down in Wales.
There has, Mark. I was just going to ask you about Guy Morris, because unfortunately he died not very long ago, and his case still isn't resolved. And I wonder if you could talk to people about his case, and for people who are not aware, because it is a very big case in South Wales, isn't it?
Well, it's hit all the papers in England and England as well. The two crucial pieces of evidence they're hanging on him is basically they found a sock with a bit of his blood in the victim's home. But what they didn't tell you was he was having an affair with the actual woman. So there was a reason why things would have been found in the house belonging to him. But they made
for people who don't know, Mike, could you set the case out what he was accused of, please?
He was accused of killing 5 people. Because it's called the Clutter murders. There's a book out by John Morris, if anybody wants to read it, and it's called the Clutter murders. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. That in the time allowed, we've investigated the case, so have the BBC. And in the time allowed, he could not have committed the offence. He was drunk that night. He was supposed to work for miles. He was supposed to have gone to the house, cleaned up all the forensic evidence, leaving no fingerprints or anything of the sort, and killing these 5 people, wiping out a whole generation of families. It was a horrific murders, as they always are. Devastating. I feel for the victim's family, but I think the police have got it wrong. And this week, with that development with the sock, they're trying to insinuate that the DNA, they don't know how it got transferred on there, they're saying, but they believe that's the missing link and links into the crime. And we say, well, no, that's not the case. So there's a lot going to come out in the next few weeks on that particular case. I've done a documentary on Sky TV and Netflix, which is coming out in January. So if anybody wants to know more about the case, that'll be it's a 4-part series, and also the Clutter murderers, but Clutter murder book by John Morris, by the same publishers who what I've got is Siren, and it goes into great detail. They didn't have no evidence. There was a piece of evidence where a police officer reckons he overheard him telling his lawyer that he did do it, and we say that conversation never took place. It was lies. They reckon they bugged the solicitor, and the solicitor said that did not happen. Right. That's very similar evidence to what they did in my case with a confession outside the cells and in the Welsh conspiracy case, and it links up nicely with all the other cases I've got in my book.
You just believe what police officers say, don't they? And that's one of the major flaws, is that their word is always believed above the accused person's word, and yet this person hasn't been convicted of any crime. And they might be of impeccable character, yet they always believe the police officer.
Well, this is the thing. Panorama highlighted Guy Morris's case, and I took part in that programme. when I put a dossier together for the Home Office to reopen all the cases and to look at them again. And they refused to do so. They tried to blank me, like as if I didn't exist. You know, the judicial inquiry I'm looking for now into all these cases has to come to fruition when there's 15 cases. You know, I mean, 15 cases is a lot in a short space of, South Wales circumference, when there's only a small population. And yet, there's no accountability. And at Hewins, the Darvell brothers, there's some other cases in here I'd like to mention briefly, if I may. Gordon Christopher Cox, he was accused of murder. Again, there was a confession outside the cells in that case. The jury disbelieved this Inspector Stuart Lewis. There was another confession in Patrick McCann's case, who was accused of killing his landlord and his sister, who's got mental illness. Put him in the frame. Yeah. I mean, she was more likely than not to have taken part in it rather than Paddy. Again, Stuart Lewis made another confession in that case. Idris Ali and Alan Charlton, same police officers, same methods of, they got the co-accused to confess and built a case around the confession. You know, like I did in the Darvell brothers, Cardiff Three, and my case. So, you know, that's just giving you a tip of the iceberg of some of the other cases, which I don't want to go too much into detail because we'll be here all night. You know what I mean?
Well, people can read you do have a book out with these cases out in the mic, which people can.
Yeah, I don't know whether you can see that. I'm not sure if anyone can see that.
Oh, well, we're just on audio, Mike. So it's the book is called The Dossier by Michael O'Brien, and is it available on Amazon, Mike?
It's available on Amazon from this week, but it's also available from www.sirenbooks.com.
Fantastic. So anybody who wants to read more about those cases, but I think what is glaring that all these cases of miscarriage of justice, the perpetrator, in most instances, has got away with it. I mean, we know in Jeremy's case that it was Sheila, and she said that she took her own life after killing the family. But in a lot of these cases, they're unresolved, aren't they? And the families of the accused and the families of those wrongfully convicted, while they're fighting for their justice, there is no resolution for the families who have lost their loved ones, because the culprit's still out there somewhere, and the police have no interest in finding them.
That's what I find most disturbing, because if they've killed once, what's to stop them from killing again? This is the thing. And, you know, in some of the cases which I've got in my book, I mean, like the murder of Philip Saunders, what we were convicted of, that person is still out there. I could have walked past him in the street. I wouldn't have known. I could be a target because I'm making so much waves, you know, trying to get the real killer behind bars. I could be the next target, because if I get too near the mark, what's this person prepared to do? Well, we know he's prepared to kill because he's already done it once. So these are all the factors which people don't really look at. And, you know, I've had a breakthrough in my particular case recently where I'm doing a Sky TV documentary next year, another one. We'll start filming in November, and it's all about the newsagent murder. And Raphael Rowe is going to be doing it. He was only convicted himself.
Excellent.
25 case. He's the presenter. They've been out to see me yesterday, and one of the victims' family may be taking part in the programme. That's a significant step, because they've always believed that we were guilty. So now the tide is turning slightly, and I think he realises that we're both on the same page. We want the person responsible, because he's ruined both our lives. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, getting justice for everybody and not just for the one or two. You know, I'm championing the cause of 15 cases, and I would put my neck on the chopping block and say, I believe every single one of those in my book are innocent. And so that means then there's a lot of people outside who shouldn't be outside. And there's a lot of people in prison who shouldn't be in prison. You know, going back to Jeremy, you know, I knew from the very first day I met Jeremy. I remember talking to him. I remember him showing me ballistic testing. everything, and I believed him straight away because I just knew he was telling the truth, because he was like me. All we talked about was the case. Nothing else mattered. The case, we were obsessed with him. Anyone who is innocent in prison cannot stop talking about their innocence and their case. And Jeremy,
36 years later, Jeremy is still
doing that. Yeah.
Every day talking about his case, the evidence and new evidence, still looking for evidence. You don't do that if you're guilty, do you?
No, you just go away and you do your sentence. I mean, what I found with some people who said they were innocent and I found that they wasn't innocent, was for the first 6 months of their imprisonment, of their life sentence, when they get it, they say, I'm innocent. But then when they realise they're never going to get out, or if they got no chance of parole because they're saying they're innocent, they start backing down then and they go, okay, well, yeah, I was there, but I didn't do what they say I did. And then they start minimising their role, and then you find out that they're just saying it for the sake of saying that they were innocent. But then after 6 months, they come to terms with it and they say, well, yeah, I did do it. I didn't mean to do it, but I did do it, because they know that's the only way they're going to get out. I was the opposite. Me, I told them I didn't want parole. I told them where the sun don't shine, in certain terms, as you can imagine. I was furious when they mentioned parole to me, saying with an attitude like Al O'Brien, you will never get out. I said, well, so be it. I'll die in prison then. But I'm still an innocent man. And I hadn't, and that was my attitude. And Jeremy's got that same fight in spirit. And that's the Jeremy I remember.
Yeah, definitely.
I know it was a long time ago, but
it's still the same. In fact, more so. It's with the evidence we've got now, which is far more substantial than it's ever been before, and especially with the case now back with the Criminal Cases Review Commission for consideration. It's like, we really feel like this is it now, that Jeremy is going to get his justice.
I believe this is it for Jeremy. I think this is going to be what breaks the camel's back. And the most important thing as well, it's going to show the criminal justice system for what it is. And there's going to have to be a Royal Commission, bigger than the Birmingham 6, bigger than the Guildford 4, bigger than all our cases put together, because of the length of time he's done and the significance of the wrongful conviction. And, I really do feel the heads are going to roll. They're going to have to roll.
Well, we're hoping some good will come for it regarding other people, Mike, and that the disclosure laws will have to change, that how they look at sentences will have to change, the way that they deal with cases at the Criminal Case Review Commission will have to change. There's got to be change.
The most important thing for me is there's got to be accountability in Jeremy's case and all these cases. It's not just the one or two. People believe that miscarriages of justice are very rare. But as I pointed out earlier, there was 85,000 people acquitted in 1989, between 1989 and, it was probably even more now. It's probably over 100,000, since we last done the check on with the Innocence Project at Bristol University. So it's probably over that now. It's probably double. So I'd like to find out the facts as they are today and see how many people have had their cases overturned. I will try and find that out I think for another podcast that would be very useful information.
I think so too, man.
To have. But, going back to Jeremy's case, people get the wrong impression of Jeremy. As I said to you, I initially got the wrong impression of Jeremy, and I apologise to him for that, because I did get him wrong. First of all, I thought he was a bit brazen. Do you know what I mean? But it wasn't that. He was confident, which I didn't have.
And it's like how Jeremy's explained to people. He went to boarding school, and at boarding school, that's what you taught. You be confident in yourself. You be assertive about yourself, because, and that's how it was in the boarding school. That's how they were taught to be confident, to be.
But if you've never come across somebody like Jeremy, I went to just a normal comprehensive school where your confidence is, I didn't have no confidence. I was bullied in school. I was the total opposite to Jeremy. You know, we chalk and cheese, you know, lifestyles, like, you know. So when you meet Jeremy, you can easily get the wrong impression. But when you start talking to him and listen to what he has to say, he's very articulate. And, you know, he's very confident. Fair play to him. And he's had to be. And he's had to be very assertive. Because I know people tried to do him harm when I was in prison. I do know that. And Jeremy had to, you know, toughen up a bit, like, you know what I mean? Because Jeremy wasn't a fighter. He was like me. He wasn't a fighter, you know, to go and punch somebody or whatever. Like, you know, he was a very unassuming man in that respect. You know what I mean? He didn't like conflict. But there was always some person, because he was Jeremy Bamber, you know, people wanted to score political points against him. And if somebody wanted to hurt him, try and hurt him, they would see that as like a trophy, like, you know what I mean? And it was all those things I can remember. And, you know, he's come a long way, Jeremy. There's no doubt about it, like, you know what I mean? I mean, he's had to adjust. And I take my hat off to him, you know, the way he's conducted himself in the face of severe adversity in the press sometimes as well. You know, I've seen some of the articles. I've been called...
The media are relentless, aren't they, Mike? It's just...
Oh, I've been called a crank. I'm a Bamber supporter and a car thief. What a terrible mix that was, somebody said to me. I went, oh dear. I said, you don't know nothing about miscarriages. If you've got nothing to say, hush up your guns. And I was on one of my... that was on one of my videos I done, like, you know, where somebody said, oh, you know, he's a car thieving Bamber supporter. What more can you get? You know what I mean? And basically calling me a scumbag and everything. I was like, wow, you don't even know me, you know? But, you know, so I know that Jeremy's had some bad stick, but I know that Jeremy, and I am confident. I've told everybody. When I took his T-shirt over to Armenia, it was fantastic. I wish you could have been there to see it, and the reaction from people in the street. Do you know what I mean? And the TV shows. I'm going to try and get the one where the TV show was actually mentioning Jeremy Bamber when he was interviewing me. Who's Jeremy Bamber?
That'd be great.
Well, that would be fantastic.
I am trying to get that. But I have got photographs somewhere of me in Armenia stroking all these stray cats with Jeremy's top on, like, you know what I mean? And I went on the shows with it, like, you know. So in Armenia, people see me on the TV. I went down to the local market. I'll give you an example. And a guy went like that because he couldn't speak the language. He went, TV, you know, square. And he said, I see you, TV, you. He was like that.
That's wonderful.
And I wore Jeremy's top nearly all the time, like, you know what I mean? For that whole
fantastic
week.
I think you've just been an amazing support, Mike, and you know, we can't thank you enough for everything that you do for us and for Jeremy and for everybody else.
You wish you
all
could
these
do more,
cases.
You wish you could do more, though. You never feel it's enough. I will never feel it's enough until I see him walking out that court of appeal.
Oh, that will happen.
Yes, it will happen. I believe that. And all these people who've called me a crank, like they did in Barry George's case and all that, I'm going to say, told you. And
exactly. We'll all have "We Told You So" T-shirts on outside the court of appeal.
That's right, outside the court of appeal, yeah. What have you got to say now for yourself? Yeah. There's a lot of people who have egg on their faces, especially that Carol Ann Lee. I mean, I've seen she did an article this week in one of the newspapers. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that one.
Carol Ann Lee did an article.
What did she say?
Well, she was basically saying, I'm sure it was in the Mail or the Mirror. I'll have to try and find it for you, because I looked at it and I put on there, lying bitch, I put on there, to be honest. I said, she doesn't, you know, and it was, somebody put it on Facebook as well, and it is about that. She was saying, I met Jeremy, I got all his letters from Jeremy, and I know that he did it. And she was saying stuff like that. I was like, wow.
Well, we never met Jeremy.
Well, we met her, Mike, a couple of weeks ago at the Crime Con convention. And she was quite shocked when we rocked up and had a chat with her.
Oh, I bet that was interesting. There's been a fly on the wall there.
Well, yes, she was a bit taken aback, I can tell you. But we were very polite to her. And
in fact, she did comment how lovely we were.
Well, I mean, she just had to make money, she was. That's all she was interested in, nothing else.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I tell people say, oh, that book on the farm. And I said, no, don't read it. It's a load of rubbish. She hasn't put none of the new evidence in it. She knows nothing. And I tell people.
But it's like, that's like with the latest Merthyr Three Mindhouse program, Mike. I don't know if you've watched it, but it is absolutely not a single shred of evidence anywhere. It's talking heads giving opinions. And, you know, as you know yourself, we were working with them, and when they told us we're not showing any evidence, well, they wouldn't let us talk about the evidence. We got told they didn't want to show the evidence, and they obviously we were told correctly because they didn't.
Well, they were working with me as well. They contacted me, and 5 times she tried to set up an interview. In the end, I said to her, listen, I got better things to do than you to mess me around. This is somebody's life we're talking about here. This ain't no game. And she didn't like it. She didn't like it. I've still got all the messages on Facebook and on Twitter where she's, you know, she contacted me. I didn't contact her. Oh, well, you know, Jeremy, are you prepared to? I said, well, of course. Anything to help Jeremy's cause and to tell the truth. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And she put off. And I just thought, oh, you're a waste of time, you are.
It's the same with everybody, Matt. That's how we knew that they weren't prepared to show the evidence, because they wouldn't hear it off us. Everybody we sent, well, so-and-so and so-and-so, and leave them lists and names of people who were prepared to talk to them, and they weren't interested. They never contact. They'd have a phone call with them, and then that would be it. So, you know, it's clear what their agenda was. It certainly wasn't to even let the viewer decide. It wasn't even that. It wasn't, this is what the police say, this is what the campaign found in the evidence, what do you think? Didn't even give people that opportunity.
No, because they were too busy trying to find evidence to condemn Jeremy, like they did in Di Morris's case this week.
Yeah, but they didn't find any, did they? Because there isn't any.
Because there was never any.
Exactly.
Because, you know, we know who was responsible. I tells everybody, anybody dares to say to me online, I've had a few ding-dongs with people, mind, you know what I mean, over the years, and I just tell them as it is. I say, what do you actually know? Oh, well, I've read what the police have said, and this, that, that. And I've read the Daily Fail, and I've read this, and I said, oh, no, now. I said, you know, because that's what I call it, a daily fail, because it fails everybody, doesn't it? So, you know, and it doesn't know the truth, the same as the Sun newspaper. You know what I mean? Somebody once, I went into the shop, and they said, oh, there's a free newspaper there, you can have it. I said, no, I don't need any toilet paper, thank you very much. So, you know, and I made a joke about it, because I wouldn't have that paper in my house, let alone use it for bond paper. You know, so, you know, that's where we are, like, you know, but I just feel it's Jeremy's time now. I think now they've got to let him out. They've got to.
Absolutely.
And the CCRC, I had a conversation with them before, and I'm trying to think of the CCRC guy who I spoke to. He knows me quite well, and he's been on the circuit, on the Miscarriages of Justice circuit, and he speaks out, you know, speaks about the CCRC, or did. He's not there anymore. I'll find out his name, because I know you'll know him. And he turned on to me, when they referred his case in 2002, he said he should have got his name cleared then. And that was the CCRC. So I know deep down that they know that this case, so they're going to make sure it's watertight this time. And I think this time, they know.
Well, we know the submissions are watertight. We know they're slam dunk, so they've just got to get on with it and do what they need to do and get it back into the court as soon as possible, because every day that goes is a day too long.
Well, the old saying is, justice delayed is justice denied.
Exactly.
And as I've always said, I've said to many people before, a miscarriage of justice will not lie dead in a grave somewhere. It will come up and rise up and haunt them all. And this is what's going to happen with Jeremy. And there's going to be a lot of people in serious, serious trouble for what has happened. The ramifications for Jeremy getting his name cleared is going to be...
And hopefully the South Wales police officers as well, who are involved in the cases in your book, Mike.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
you know, I've been at this for 35 years now, and I've been trying to get them for many years, and they seem to be untouchable. But I don't think they understood my resolve or tenacity. I thought they thought that I'd get my compensation and I would just go away into the sunset, find a nice woman, and there we go, we'll live happily ever after. But those things that are just don't happen, you know what I mean? And I was never about money, the compensation. If they said to me that you're not entitled to compensation, I would have still fought for like I am now, like, you know what I mean? Because it was about justice. I would rather the real killer of Philip Saunders behind bars than have any compensation whatsoever. You know, to be honest with you, if I had a choice, and I had a choice, right then, you have the real killer behind bars, or you can have £1 million in compensation, I know what I would have said.
Exactly.
You know, that's the difference.
Exactly.
You know, as I said, I live in a council house. Do you know what I mean? There's no airs and graces with me. I'm still the same person I was before I went in. I'm just more educated. And, you know, I don't suffer fools gladly anymore like I used to.
And you've done such a lot to help other people and to support other people. It's just incredible the work you've done, Mike.
But I reckon Jeremy will be a big, big help when he comes out. I mean, his voice will be massive.
Yes,
absolutely.
It will.
Absolutely.
He'll be the big voice. He'll be the one everybody will look up to and think, wow.
You'll be able to team up together and go on your roadshow, Justice Roadshow with Michael and Jeremy.
Yeah. You know, well, no, I tell you what, it'll be the Antiques Roadshow, boy. By the time I got up here, me and Jeremy will be the antiques. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, we'll have to leave it for today. Thank you so much, Michael, for highlighting those other cases for us. And I know that you've got a lot more cases that you want to talk to us about. So we'll do them on another podcast, but it's been absolutely brilliant. So for today, we'll say thank you very much to Michael, and thank you very much to Philip, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks from me, Mike. Great stuff.
No, thank you for letting me do this. I'm very pleased to do this and be able to help and show people that, you know, miscarriages of justice are still going on today. They're not. I want to get this notion out that they're not individual cases, and they're not. How can I put it? There's more miscarriages of justice than what people can ever imagine. They just got to look and watch and see. You know, they're not just rare occasions. So that's all I can say.
And they're not going to go away because we need to fight this.
You have to have accountability before people will listen. And if there's no accountability for anybody, there will always be miscarriages of justice. And I've said this time and time again. And I hope people will take that on board as well.
It's just got to stop, hasn't it?
Got to stop, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.
If you want to lend your support to Jeremy Bamber, you can write to him in the UK using the number A5352AC, HM Wakefield, 5 Love Lane, Wakefield, WF2 9AG, or see our website for details at www.jeremy-bamber.co.uk.